welcome back. Been looking forward to our guest here today, Brilyn Hollyhand. He's 17 years old, a political commentator, strategist, and author of a new book titled One Generation Away, Why Now is the Time to Restore America's Freedom. He's the founder and the editor-in-chief of the Truth Gazette, a conservative news service that he established at the age of 11, and the host of a podcast, the Brilyn Hollyhand Show, which is available on the major podcast platform. And last year, he was appointed to the co-chair of the RNC's inaugural Youth Advisory Council. Wow, he does have a website, Brilyn, that's B-R-I-L-Y-N, Hollyhand.com, and there's the picture of his landing page there of his website. Brilyn, good to see you. How are you?
Good morning. Happy Thursday. Thanks so much for having me. I think it's the best intro I've gotten this entire book tour, so you're just going to have to follow me around everywhere. You did such a great job. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. Where are you? Where are we Skyping you in from?
I'm from Tuscaloosa, Alabama today, so I'm home for once. I've been on the road for the past few weeks, but today and tomorrow I'm here.
Well, you're a go-getter. This is great. Why did you decide to take this book on?
Absolutely. So as you said, I started getting into politics at the age of 11. I was in the 4th grade. It was right after that 2016 presidential election that steered so many people away from politics and actually drew me in because I saw how divisive the country was getting, and I thought that we could unite again. And that's what the mission this whole time has been, is bringing together Americans of all ages, all political parties, even young people, and bringing them to the table and having a conversation. And so I've spent the past 7 years traveling this great nation, talking to as many Americans as I could, but more importantly, listening to even more of them. And what I hear every single time I give a speech, and a lot of them, again, have been on college campuses as we're directly talking to young people right now, we're hearing that Americans don't have hope in a future. We're hearing that they don't believe that they're going to grow up in a free America like our parents and grandparents got to. And so that's why I put together this book. Because what we're seeing is spiritual warfare. And it's so important to know how to combat that. It's so important to know that, hey, we've got to call this out. We've got to unite together as Christians and as conservatives and come together to rally against this divisiveness that's spreading across the country. So I appreciate the opportunity to get to talk about it today.
Yeah.
It comes out on July 9th, and we're just so excited.
Well, congratulations. Will it be available on most bookstore websites and all that?
Absolutely, yes, sir. Signed copies are on my website, it's brylynbook.com, but they're available on all major retailers, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, everything like that. You can pre-order right now. Did
you target a certain demographic with this book?
Great question. So the very first question I got from my publisher was that very question. Well, what demographic are we targeting? And I said, I think this book and my story has a unique opportunity to target 3 different people groups. First, we're going to target young people because that's who I get to speak to directly. This book is for young people who are interested in getting involved in politics but don't really know where to start. They don't like where this country's going. They want to fix that, but again, they don't really know where to start. This book's for them. It's also for parents out there who are seeing the indoctrination that's going on in classrooms all across the country, even down to preschool, and they want to change that. They want to get the truth in front of their children. This book's for them. But it's also for grandparents. It's for grandparents out there that walk up to me after I give a speech and say that they are so sad that this is the America they're leaving their grandchildren. So this book's for them to start conversations with their grandchildren, to bring it back to the glory days that they got to live here in America. So I just think it's a really cool opportunity. A lot of books don't get to reach all, that wide variety of people, but I think this book can, and I'm so excited for people to finally get to read it.
Oh, that's wonderful. So let me ask you this. Did you see a common denominator, if I could use that term, of a lack of hope for the future of America and anti-Americanism? Is there a common ground there?
There absolutely is. And there's a chapter in the book that we started off with some polling to show that it's not just me from personal experience hearing it, but there's actual polling saying that people, first of all, don't have trust in America, don't have hope in an American future, but are also becoming anti-America because of how divisive it is. And so I think my generation has such a unique chance, such a unique opportunity right here, right now, to kind of change the tide, to start this conversation nationally about coming back together, being united, coming together in a faith so that we can actually set this country back on track, because we know a country without a faith has zero backbone at all. And so another point, the very last chapter of my book is called For Such a Time as This. And it's, obviously all about the story of Esther and how that can relate to today's America, because I believe my generation was put in this place for such a time as this to hopefully save American freedom. And that's the whole idea of the book. Obviously, the title, One Generation Away, came from Reagan's famous quote, freedom is one generation away from extinction. Unfortunately, I think America's on the brink. I think we're at that point where we're one generation away from extinction. And if we sit on the sidelines for too much longer, this goes for Christians and conservatives out there. If we sit on the sidelines for too much longer, there will not be a free America for my generation to grow up in.
Do you believe that the lack of American history is a contributing factor as to where we are?
100%. So I am an American history nerd. And everybody in my family and friends know that. And so when I was laying out the groundwork for this book, I said, we're going to do it in 3 sections. The first section is going to be how we got here. The second section is going to be where are we now? And the third section will be where do we go from here? Kind of a battle plan of how to save the country. So the first section is the historical section. It starts with the hippie movement and talks about how during the hippie movement, when we had, kind of this liberal communist ideology seep into higher education, and now it's seeped all the way down to preschool, it started there. So we start by informing people in history, because I'll tell you this, I took an advanced placement U.S. history class this year, and I didn't learn any of this stuff. So the most fascinating part of the book was actually doing the research. So we're trying to inform people at the beginning. The second section, obviously, where are we now, is my personal favorite. It's called the modern day F words: faith, family, and freedom. And when I wrote that, my publisher was like, oh my gosh, you can't call it that. And I said, but wait, listen. Faith, family, and freedom are all taboo in modern day America. The left is attacking faith, family, and freedom because they know it's the cornerstone, the bedrock of this country. And there is no country without faith, family, and freedom. That's why we're deteriorating today. So I think it's so important to start with the history, to start by informing my peers and even generations before us who aren't necessarily aware of it, why we got into the mess we're in today, and then talk about how we can save it. And that's by instilling the values of faith, family, and freedom in everyday America.
Oh, you're inspiring. That's wonderful. Hey, I understand now. I do a lot of interviews, but you've got a couple here that I haven't done yet. You got to interview Donald Trump. You got to interview Vivek Ramaswamy and RFK Jr. Is that true? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So it's one thing to ask questions. Did you give them any advice?
Yes. Yes. So for the very first time in this book, I share some of the conversations that I have with the candidates. So my position as chairman of the RNC's Youth Advisory Council was to sit down with the Republican candidates during the primary and talk to them about how they can win over the youth vote. And I also sat down with RFK because he reached out, and we had some really interesting conversations. And I share a specific conversation in the book. We're just going to use Trump for an example because everybody knows Trump. I share a specific conversation in the book of President Trump and I meeting backstage at a rally he had here in Alabama, and him saying, what can I do to win more youth voters? And I said, Mr. President, Truth Social is great, but you've got to get out of the bubble. You got to get out of the echo chamber with just your supporters and go somewhere where other people can hear you, where my generation is, where they can get your message directly. I said, you've got to get back on Instagram. You've got to get on TikTok. Well, 2 weeks after that conversation, he restarted his Instagram account and started posting. And a week ago, he got back on TikTok, and he's got millions and millions of followers there now. So I cannot tell you the amount of people that have been blowing up my phone. These are like teenagers that I see in the lunchroom that have zero political interest at all, and they're texting me Donald Trump's TikToks because they're coming up on their screens, and Trump's message is getting directly in front of them. These are people that wouldn't go stand in an audience at a Trump rally, but because he's putting a short form video out, is getting to them. So that's the advice that you asked about that I've been sharing with the candidates, and I think they're listening, hopefully, and maybe we could see that help them come November.
Oh, that's wonderful. And let me say to our viewers and listeners before I run out of time, Brilyn's book is called One Generation Away, Why Now is the Time to Restore America Freedom. It's coming out shortly, and look for it. What is there a release date? Is there a release date?
Yes, July 9th. We'll be in New York City for the release July 9th, but you can get signed copies on brylynbook.com.
Okay. Do you think the faith community understands the criticalness of the moment in America?
I hope they do, but I'm concerned that they do not. I was at a church last week in Dallas speaking to an incredible group of people, and I had somebody come up to me and say, I don't think people realize the spiritual warfare we're facing today. And I said, I completely agree. I think people think that this is just more divisiveness, that this is just more political attacks on the big screen, and it is. But the root of all of this is spiritual warfare, and that's what we have to combat it as Christians. That's why it's up to us, first of all, as Christians, to get up off the sidelines. We can't just sit here anymore and say, the politicians are going to do it, the politicians are going to do it. And this is what I say in every speech I give to young people, because like I said, we started the interview by saying young people don't have hope in America. I tell them at the end of every speech, my hope is not in any DC bureaucrat. My hope is in Jesus Christ alone. And when we start sharing that message with my generation and generations before us, I think we can turn the tide in this country. And there is hope. We're seeing revivals on college campuses, and I think there's going to be even more of that when students come back in the fall because they want hope. They see that Jesus Christ is this only shining light, of beacon of hope, and they want that. So I think that Christians are waking up to see the moment, and hopefully they will even more.
I want to get you back. Let me say to our viewers and listeners again, Brilyn Hollyhand, it's Brilyn, Hollyhand.com is his website. Check it out. Look for his book coming out in the next week or two, and it's entitled One Generation Away, Why Now is the Time to Restore American Freedom. You're fascinating. Let's stay connected. God bless you, my friend. Stay in the fight, and I look forward to talking to you a lot.
Thank you for having me, sir. Have a great week.
Yeah, you too.